What's up, guys? Welcome to the Second Take. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jonah.
And we are back for more football. Week 1 just ended, and unfortunately, Jonah's team is 0-1 and my team is 1-0. So at least half the podcast is happy. It was bound to happen since we played each other. But we're going to start off by talking about a different NFC East team. So if you watch the Redskins Monday night play against the Steelers, you might have seen them when the Steelers were on offense. The right side of the field was completely tipped, like it was an imbalance. Left side was way higher up, right side was way lower. And if you're wondering why that was, it was because Josh Norman's $70 million was just sitting right there and not doing anything. Antonio Brown was on the left side just getting 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, like, Antonio Brown style. And $75 million was just parked on the right side of the field. So, if you can't tell, we're going to start out talking about Josh Norman and how much I personally hate him, and Jonah doesn't like him at all, really, but not as much as I hate him. And how I think that $75 million is the biggest waste of money for the Redskins. So, in Carolina, we discussed this earlier, but he's kind of a product of the scheme. Carolina was so good defensively, especially in their front four, that there was really no need to even have skills as a cornerback. You could just get by with athleticism, and that's kind of what he did. And now that he's in Washington, who still has a solid defense, he is surrounded by a much worse defense, but still solid. You'd expect him to fall around, I don't know, Antonio Brown, maybe Dez Bryant this week, maybe Odell next week. But that doesn't happen. He just stands on the right side, plays the right side of the field the whole game, and doesn't move from there. He covered Antonio Brown a total of 2 times when they played the Steelers on Monday night. And if you're going to pick a corner $75 million, you're going to want him to cover Antonio Brown more than twice. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jonah?
Well, I mean, this, let's just note here, this is part 6 or 7 of, the Zach Hercher campaign against Josh Norman. This is, the podcast version of this presidential election.
Yes.
I think I'll start by saying where I agree with you, which is that Josh Norman was pretty much a system corner in Carolina. Obviously not a bad player. I mean,
Right.
He was too good last year to not be good at all.
Right.
You know? I mean, you couldn't just throw anybody in that system and have them be good.
Correct.
But at the same time, he's not one of, the top 3 or 4 corners in the league. I think that's pretty clear. And the Redskins basically gave a 28-year-old corner $75 million, as you said. They're going to be paying him a nice $15.5 million in 2020 when he's 32 years old. So I don't think that contract's going to look very good then. Obviously, he talks a big game, but really only plays one side of the field. You could twist that around and say partly that it's somewhat the fault of the Redskins. I mean, in the Panthers system, he never had to play the other side of the field because that was just how they played. The Redskins don't play the same system as the Panthers. So they're keeping Josh Norman where he's comfortable. But, if you're confident enough in a corner to give him $75 million, you should also be confident enough in him to teach him to play the other damn side of the field,
Right.
I mean, I doubt that this whole thing is just Josh. I don't think they asked him to play the other side of the field, and Josh Norman said, "No, screw you, I don't play that side of the field." I think he would have if they wanted him to. Maybe he wouldn't have been as good on the other side of the field, but I don't think this is pure Josh Norman laziness. I think it's partly the Redskins not willing to shake things up.
Right.
Which the Redskins have not been super well run in the past 10 years or so, so it doesn't surprise me that that's what's happening. So I think there's some fault to be found with both sides of this.
Yeah, I mean, where do you have him ranked, in terms of corners in the NFL?
Without looking at a list, I'd say he's probably in the 15 to 20 range.
Okay, perfect. Because I thought you were going to say top 10 for a second. I think he's about the same spot. He's better than probably half.
Yeah, I mean, half the teams in the league would be happier to have him as their number 1 corner than whoever they currently have.
Right.
The Cowboys among them. I would take Josh Norman over any corner.
Well, I mean, Orlando Scandrick is okay when he's healthy, but he's had his bumps and bruises. The rest of them suck, though. But so Jonah and I were talking about this earlier. How Jonah asked me what other great corners only play one side of the field, and Richard Sherman is a name that's been talked about for doing the same thing. The difference with Richard Sherman and Josh Norman is that, first of all, he's on the Seahawks. They're always known for a great secondary. They plug other people in at that other corner position, and they're always good. So Richard Sherman doesn't follow the best receiver, almost because it's not necessary in Seattle. That's just how good their team is and how deep they are. And last year, the number one corner on the Redskins was Chris Culliver, who has a torn ACL, I'm pretty sure, this year. But he followed the best receiver around. I mean, he followed Odell all over the field last year when they played the Giants. So it's not like the Redskins have never done that before. Bashaud Breeland pretty much followed Odell around just because Josh Norman wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, Bashaud Breeland's not that bad. I mean,
Right. He got picked on for sure, but most people recognize the fact that Josh Norman is better than Bashaud Breeland. So why wouldn't you take your chance by putting Antonio Brown on the left side of the field to go against Bashaud Breeland rather than Josh Norman when you just know he's not going to move?
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers always seem to find these receivers that come out of nowhere. We're seeing that with Eli Rogers. Sammy Coach should be good. Martavis Bryant was not. I mean, he was certainly a big prospect, but he wasn't Calvin Johnson coming out of college.
Right.
So they always seem to find these guys, and they did well targeting guys in the slot too. The Steelers just always seem to find a way. So
right.
I'll see how Josh Norman plays against a team that can't pass as well next week, like the Dallas Cowboys. Before I totally judge the Josh Norman Redskins tenure. But just on Richard Sherman for a second, I think it's very possible that Richard Sherman is tremendously overrated.
I would agree with that for sure.
And I think the evidence, I think there's a difference here because I think there's two players that always come to mind when you think of the Seahawks secondary is mainly Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas are seen as the top studs. There's always another corner. Cam Chancellor's great, but he's more of a big hitter, less of a coverage guy.
Right.
I think Earl Thomas has shown just from his raw athletic ability and how great he was in college too. He's probably the best safety in the game. But if you look at Richard Sherman, I'm not really convinced that he's a top 3 corner either. And I think you have a lot of the same system guy concerns that you have with Josh Norman when you look at Richard Sherman.
Right.
Just because, and evidence for that is all these guys who have lined up on the other side of the field across from Sherman, who have played so well in Seattle and gone on to sign big free agent contracts, none of them have been anywhere near as good once they left Seattle. The biggest example of that's Brandon Browner,
right,
who was a complete disaster in both New England and New Orleans, taking penalties 4 times a game.
And went back to Seattle and got cut this year.
Right. So I don't know. I feel like there might be just some magic with that Seattle team. Maybe Pete Carroll is just a cornerback whisperer, I guess. But I think just with this Josh Norman thing, just in general, to bring it back to that, I think there's a reason and that I think we're seeing to be skeptical of guys who are just system guys.
Right.
Once you move them out of that system.
Right. But in defense of Richard Sherman, I think he would still definitely be a top 10 cornerback, if not still top 5.
Right. I mean, he clearly has the athletic ability too. Right.
When I think about great corners, it's usually Patrick Peterson, Darrelle Revis, Malcolm Butler. I'm forgetting someone. But you get the idea. You know the class of good corners. And there's really no argument when you think of them.
Right, and they always get a lot of attention because they, along with wide receivers, tend to be flashy. They're
right.
very confident.
Right.
So you look at guys like that. I mean, even guys like Jason Verrett, Chris Harris, guys that don't get talked about as much, are also really good.
Oh yeah.
And they always talk a big game, and so it's always interesting to watch these guys. And Josh Norman's no exception to that.
Yeah, but he's all talk and no play.
You know,
yeah.
I just can't wait for the Beckham Norman rematch.
September 25th, baby. September 25th. Yeah, but I mean, we don't. Jonah, like Jonah just said, Jonah kind of just defended him and still put him barely in the top 20. So, we don't think he's that great, but I guess we're gonna have time to see if he really is or not. He's got 15 more games to prove himself as a pretty much. I mean, we said Breland's okay, but obviously Josh Norman's supposed to be the cream of the crop, and should play that way for the Redskins. He has a tough first 3 weeks against Antonio Brown, Des Bryant, and Odell. Obviously, he didn't cover Antonio Brown, so we can't even discuss that. Thanks a lot, Josh Norman. But I expect some of the same for Des. Well, I don't know if you guys are smart enough to figure out you can put Des on the other side of the field, but I definitely expect the same for Odell.
Yeah, I would think they'll put Des on the other side of the field at least most of the time.
You would hope.
You would hope, yeah. Let's just leave it there.
So that says enough about the Cowboys right there. Let's go into the games and teams that kind of stood out. So Jonah and I both agreed that the Patriots were probably the most outstanding, I guess you could say, team from Week 1. If you listen to the last podcast, we both picked the Cardinals pretty handedly. Obviously, they didn't win, and they really weren't even that close. The Patriots kind of controlled the game, it seemed like, even though they had to kick a field goal in one of their last possessions. They were pretty impressive. And then really, the Broncos were okay. Packers and Jaguars were okay. Bengals were okay. I mean, but really other than that, Steelers were good. There was nothing that was outstanding. No team jumped out of the paper and was like, yes, we're winning the Super Bowl. Yeah. And I don't think, at the same time, I don't think any team was like, wow, we don't have a shot. Even though there were some teams, like the Cardinals, like the Panthers, like the Seahawks, that I thought were going to be really good and compete and kind of...
The Seahawks look bad. I mean, they do often do that. Like
all the time, yeah.
They always come out of the gate a little slow. Like, they always have to figure out their offensive lines. Like, I'm not ultimately worried about the Seahawks, but they definitely didn't look good.
And they do struggle to play against teams like Seattle or like Miami when they're favored by 11 points. Like, everyone in the building knows what's going to happen, and then they come out sluggishly.
Right, they lose to the Rams once a year.
Exactly, which is just...
Every year they lose to the Rams.
If anyone watched that Monday night game, you can understand how they should not lose to the Rams.
This might be the year they don't lose to the Rams. I don't want to...
You would hope.
Yeah.
But just one thing about our teams, I don't know if Jonah's going to agree with this, but I actually don't agree with it, believe it or not. But I've read a couple articles from Giants.com, so slightly not biased, but like it's our sports writers interviewing people from Dallas, Dallas sports writers, asking them what they thought about our defense. And every single one of them, without question, has said that we are a top 5 defensive line. We have a top 5 defensive line. I personally didn't think that. I spent the whole first half ripping my hair out about how we couldn't get to Dak Prescott and how he just had all the time in the world. But all the Dallas sports writers have said how they've never seen that offensive line manhandled that way. I don't know if I was like watching the wrong game because I really didn't see that. But in terms of running, in terms of Ezekiel Elliott's running game, when I kind of rewatched every one of his running plays. Yes, I'm a freak like that. He ran the ball 20 times. There were 18 times where he got hit at the line of scrimmage or a yard before or a yard after the line of scrimmage. So 18 out of 20 times that he couldn't even get to the line of scrimmage without getting at least a hand on him. That's pretty impressive against your offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an impressive performance by the Giants. I think that the Cowboys looked a lot better than I expected them to.
Dak managed the game pretty well.
Yeah, he wasn't like lighting the world on fire, but he showed that he could be a competent quarterback.
Right.
I think obviously Elliott was not great. Alfred Morris looked a lot better than he did. So we'll see how the balance of carries goes in the next few games, like whether they start to give Morris some more carries, because he clearly definitely has something still left in the tank.
Right.
And the defense looked like as good as I could have possibly expected it to, honestly. I mean, because the defense is not good, and they played like pretty much to their full potential. So if they can continue to do that, and Terrence Williams learns how to manage the clock a little bit, then maybe the Cowboys could win a few more games than we're thinking this year.
Yeah, I think you're in a fine. You're fine. I mean, I wouldn't be freaking out if I was you. Defensively, there wasn't a single area that you guys really stood out or played well. It was just as a collective unit, you didn't allow many things to happen.
Right, we didn't make a ton of like big mistakes. Like that was what we always saw with the Cowboys defense, is there'd just be like a blown coverage by like Barry Church, and suddenly Odell Beckham would be like 90 yards downfield and it'd be over.
Which one time Odell ran by I think it was Scandrick, but it didn't, if it was all in a touchdown or anything, just like a 45-yard completion.
Right, which is gonna happen.
Yeah, right. But you're already on pace for more turnovers than you had last year, which is a good start.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you didn't necessarily have a great pass rush, which we knew. You didn't have outstanding linebacker play. Nobody in the secondary really like was amazingly good. It was just collectively you kind of were bending but not breaking, which is kind of what we did too, giving up 3 straight field goals and then holding it down a little bit. But
Dan Bailey, team MVP.
I think both of us have reason to be at least slightly optimistic for the rest of the year.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the Giants are starting from a higher baseline. I think the Giants are just a better team this year. I expect them to win the division. But I was at least encouraged by the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but I don't think they're going to be a disaster.
Right, and which is good.
And I think they have stuff to build on. Like they're a younger team than people think they are.
You're extremely young, yeah.
Right, like they have old guys that are like the figureheads of the team, Tony Romo, Jason Witten, that like, so people just see those guys leading the team and think, oh, this team's old, but like it's really not.
Yeah, you just have to have a couple of good drafts on defense and hope that Dak can grow as a quarterback, and you should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need Dak to be Peyton Manning, but like,
right, yeah, with a great running game.
Right, like with a great running game. I mean, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. You don't need
to. Yeah, so there's room for excitement for both of us. Other than that, you want to just briefly touch on the Broncos and Panthers game?
Yeah, so the opener was a really great game.
Which we weren't expecting, but we're glad it happened.
Yeah, and the Broncos just found a way. I mean, Trevor Siemian was like, he came out on that first drive looking awesome. They were just putting the ball in his hands.
Honestly, it was like the first 2 or 3 drives, but they kept turning it over, not by his fault whatsoever. I mean, he had a deflection, which Thomas Davis is just a freak, so do what you want with that. But then Devontae Booker fumbled his first carry, so like there's just some bad things that happened, but he played well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way Siemian played, like obviously the games were different, but it just reminded me of the way Prescott played, kind of, and just like they were competent managers of the game, and like obviously Prescott's team didn't do as much for him. Like the Broncos defense was as good as advertised. Like there were a couple of mistakes made, and like Cam Newton was still great, but yeah, the Broncos showed me a lot in that game. Like they validated, I think, my prediction that they'd win that division still.
Yeah, I got to give it up to you for that one because I didn't see that coming at all, and I thought the Panthers were going to be a lot better than they were.
Yeah, I didn't think the Broncos would win that game even. I just think, like, they still have most of a solid core there, and if Simeon can just manage games, be like Alex Smith, you know, like that team can make the playoffs.
Right,
and Alex Smith makes the playoffs. So.
And, I mean, the Chiefs didn't necessarily look very good. Gave up a lot of points to the Chargers, which we didn't see coming.
The Chiefs looked awful. They did not deserve to win that game.
Yeah, and the Raiders...
The Chargers didn't either, but nobody did.
The Raiders look fine. I think they're still going to be able to compete. Their defense held up when it mattered against the Saints, and they're just gutsy and, I guess, know how to win with that two-point conversion. So I still feel pretty good about the Raiders. But, yeah... The Panthers were a team I expected to come out and be kind of superstars, and especially with watching that ring ceremony, I thought Cam Newton was going to have like 1,000 yards combined, and that obviously didn't even come close to happening. He played one of the worst games I think I've ever seen him play, but I still think they're going to be okay. I know a lot of people are having concerns with Kelvin Benjamin's rookie year. Cam really only threw the ball to him and didn't spread it around at all, and it kind of became, as easy as it is to cover a 6'5" receiver, it became a little bit easier just because you knew where the ball was going. And he kind of got back to that on Thursday, but I kind of expect him to fix that by the end of the year. And even if you throw it to Kelvin every time, you're still going to win games.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good.
Yeah.
Like I just kept being struck. I was texting you this. I'm like, Kelvin Benjamin is freaking cute.
Yeah, like nobody even thinks about it. He's a top 15 pick, and the kid's 6'5", 6'4". It's pretty fast. Got great hands, can jump out of the gym. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, even coming off an ACL, he looked fantastic.
Great, yeah. And he took his hits, too, which is good to see that he's not feeling the effects of the ACL at all. But, yeah, I think
right, for sure.
They should get back on track at some point here, and we'll see what happens. But other than that, we didn't really see anything that stood out to us, which is somewhat to be expected from Week 1. I did expect to see some more teams take that step forward and be like, yeah, we're here. And just briefly, I'll talk about Jacksonville because I've been talking about them all preseason long. But they played Green Bay, lost by 4, 27-23. It was at home. I think they looked pretty damn good. I think Green Bay is going to be one of the best teams in the NFL this year. And Jacksonville had every chance in the world to beat them. Aaron Rodgers is just a freaking superhero.
That was the 1 o'clock game I was watching because I really wanted to see the Jaguars. Like, people have been talking the Jags up a lot. I'm on the record a lot of times as being pretty skeptical of the Jaguars, but they played certainly very well. Like, there's no doubt. I mean, it was in Jacksonville. I don't know. People are saying like, oh, maybe it was just like the Heat. The Green Bay players were like
no.
These guys are all from Florida and Texas.
Yes.
It's not like they haven't played in hot weather before. Like, just because they live in Wisconsin now, like, that argument doesn't make any sense.
No, they won on a superhuman effort by Aaron Rodgers. And the dude
because Aaron Rodgers is the best player in the league. And that's just...
Dude, Jalen Ramsey is hanging on his arm, pulling his entire left arm backwards. He's throwing a pass off his back foot, throws it only where the receiver can catch it for a touchdown against perfect coverage. Like, how does that... You can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers makes... like 10 of those throws every season, and you just gotta like see that, shake your head.
And he already made 3 of them, so it looks like we're on pace for about 50 this year.
Yeah, I mean, in our lifetime, like, the truly great quarterbacks have been Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. I think is pretty much the list.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna say that Rodgers is definitely better than the other guys, but he has the most, like, oh my god.
Yeah,
no
what
one
just
else
happened?
In the world can make that throw.
Exactly. No, and after watching that game, I would honestly say he's the best quarterback. Like, I never, not that I never thought that he was. I always thought he was good and at least top 5, definitely top 3, probably actually. But now definitively, I can tell you he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even have such a great year last year. Like, by his standards, he was still obviously one of the top, like, 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the league. But, I think this game showed. I mean, Green Bay and Jacksonville both looked really good. Like, those both looked like playoff teams to me.
Yeah.
Just like Green Bay is better than Jacksonville. I think most people would say that. And so they won.
I was certainly expecting Green Bay to beat them. I mean, I thought it would be close, but the outcome was what I expected.
I was impressed with both teams. I still am not in love with Blake Bortles, but the rest of the
but it shows you how
Jaguars looked good.
It shows you how good they are now that he had a relatively bad game and they only lost to one of the best teams by 4.
Right.
So like the defense is definitely coming around, if not already there, and I think Bortles will hopefully get better as the season goes on. But with that, you want to get into our picks?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be picking the winners of 4 specific set-out games every week. We'll, just to go over this again, we'll be picking the same 4 games. Then we each pick an upset meaning a team to win that's an underdog by more than 3 points, and we each pick a lock to win, just a team that's definitely going to win. So you get a point for each of your wins in the lock or the games that we both pick, and then you get 2 points if your upset wins, and you lose 1 point if your lock loses.
Right. So after last week, we both had our locks win. I had the Chiefs, which, Jesus, I was sweating that out.
Yeah, so was I with the Seahawks.
Yeah, which never should have happened. Then our upsets, we both lost. I had the Browns. I know I'll never do that again. And you had the Bears.
I had the Bears, who did not look good. The Texans didn't even look that good.
Yeah. Those are two teams you fell in love with quick, though. And then we both...
I still think the Texans will win that division, though.
Oh, shut your mouth. Can we go one podcast without you saying that?
It's me and Brock Osweiler.
And then we both won by picking the Steelers over the Redskins, and what was the other one that we both won?
We didn't win.
Oh, we didn't win anything else.
We both won.
Yeah.
Because
then I picked the Giants.
We both had the Panthers beating the Broncos, and we both had the Cardinals beating the Patriots, so we lost those.
Right. And then
he had the Giants over the Cowboys. I had to pick my Cowboys. But so yeah, I was really impressive 2-4 at the first week. Zach was 3-3, so we'll try to do better this week.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That won't happen again, I promise.
Yeah.
It's the week 1 blues that happens every year. So this week we're going to start off with tonight's game, which is Jets against the Bills. Both teams 0-1. The Jets look pretty decent, at least on defense, looked pretty good against the Bengals. But offensively, they didn't really have much to offer. Granted, it's a good Bengals team, but the Bills looked really kind of atrocious.
Yeah, they really did.
Losing 13-7 to the Ravens.
I made a nice bet on the Jets earlier in the season, not actual money, because that would be. But I did predict that the Jets would make the playoffs. I think they looked, for the most part, pretty good in that Bengals game. I mean, the Bengals are a solid team.
Oh, yeah.
And the Jets held them to only a 1-point win. They looked like the better team for the whole first half.
And they sacked Andy Dalton, I think, 7 times.
Yeah.
Which was a record.
Their defensive line, Leonard Williams and Sheldon Richardson, they don't even need Muhammad Books.
Yeah, but he helps.
He does help, yeah.
I'll take him.
There's just so much firepower on that defense that, even if you have AJ Green eating Darrelle Revis' lunch, it's still a close game.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, Sammy Watkins is good, but he's not AJ Green.
Right. But yeah, so I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm gonna pick the Bills.
Wow.
And it's for one reason. Rex Ryan is 8-1 against Ryan Fitzpatrick. That obviously goes back to when Rex Ryan was coach of the Jets and Ryan Fitzpatrick was quarterback of the Bills. But I don't know why. He has his number. And I don't know.
The game is in Buffalo.
And it's a division game. It's going to be hard-fought, close game no matter how you spin it. So that's just my gut feeling.
I'm going to go with the Jets. I think if I'm picking the Jets to make the playoffs, they have to be winning games like this against the Bills. The Bills, I would have maybe leaned toward picking the Bills if they didn't look so bad last week that Rex Ryan might get fired territory. This is save Rex Ryan's job game. I don't know how into it the Bills are going to be, but we'll see. I mean, Rob Ryan is out there on the sidelines
right
too, so that's never good against the Cowboys. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Jets.
All right. Which it's also the spread on the game right now is even, which I don't know how that's possible, but the Jets are clearly the better team.
Wait, this is a pick'em?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's surprising. I would bet on the Jets for that.
Yeah, it's got to be. I don't know. Vegas always knows better than I do, so that's all I'm gonna say.
That's also a deadly sentence. I will bet on the Jets. That's
the kiss of death.
Yeah.
The next one is another surprising line. It's the Bengals and the Steelers, and Pittsburgh is favored by 3.5.
This game is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, which has a lot to do with the line. However, I do still think the Bengals are the better team. Yeah, I'm gonna go Bengals.
So yeah, we're gonna go different ways again on this one. So this will be interesting.
Here we go.
I'm picking the Steelers. I think the Steelers. I feel like this is just kind of like a season series that the teams will split.
One at home, one at home.
Yeah, and since this game's in Pittsburgh, I like the Steelers here. They looked really good against Washington, I thought. Like, certainly better than the Bengals looked in their first game.
Right.
The Steelers are going to have a hard time guarding A.J. Green. That's the one thing that gives me pause because the Steelers secondary is not very good. But I think their offense is a good bit better than Cincinnati's, and that's why I'm going with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the reason I'm taking Cincinnati is because the Jets' defense is clearly better than Pittsburgh's, and Cincinnati still played good enough, even though by our accounts we don't think they played that great, to beat the Jets. So I'm going to just say that they play at least the same, if not a little bit better, which I think is enough to beat the Steelers, and I think their defense is noticeably better than the Redskins, who gave up 38, which is kind of skewed. It was more like, I don't know, 31-ish. That's even a little more. It kind of got out of hand towards the end. But, yeah, either way, this is going to be a great game. The only problem I'm going to have with the game is there's going to be more flags thrown than ever in the history of any football game ever, just because obviously
it's just going to be annoying.
Yeah, like it's not even going to be fun to watch, which kind of sucks because it should be a lot of fun to watch with the talent that's going to be on the field.
I'm surprised this isn't a night game. Like, this is just a 1 o'clock game. I'm surprised.
Yeah, but there's a good one on Sunday night too, which we'll get to.
Yeah, well, if I have to watch Sam Bradford, but we'll see.
I can't believe who you're going to pick in that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you're waiting with bated breath.
So since the Cowboys lost last week, we're going to pick the Giants game this week. Since the Giants are 1-0, Cowboys are 0-1, and also.
Oh, really? Are they?
Oh, did I not say that a couple times already? And also, I think that the Cowboys-Redskins game might be closer, I guess, than the... no. It might be... It could boil down to be more entertaining. No, I can't even spin it that way. I don't know. The Saints and Giants is going to be really high scoring and should be a lot of fun to watch. So there you go. That's why we're picking that game instead, I guess. The Giants currently, it's home opener for the Giants. They're favored by 4.5. Everything about this game gives me nightmares. First off, we played the Saints last year.
That was a hell of a game.
Yeah, in New Orleans, scored 49 points and lost because they won 52-49.
That was one of the worst football games I've ever watched, and
but
also
best.
The best at the same time.
Drew Brees had 7 touchdown passes. Eli had 6. No, they didn't play on Madden. This was an actual game. I think they combined for like 1,100 yards of offense or something stupid like that. It was fun to watch, but also miserable at the same time. Giants defense is noticeably better this year. I think you can see that from week 1. I also think the Saints defense is better. I know you don't like the team at all, but I think at least in the first half you could tell the Saints had a little bit something more on defense too. I mean,
they were better than I thought they'd be.
Derek Carr didn't play as good as you were expecting, as good as I was expecting. They kind of held the Raiders' the offense in check for the majority of the first half. The Raiders obviously got it going and ended up winning the game, but I think they definitely outperformed what we expected.
Yeah. No, yeah, they did. The one problem is that Delvin Breaux is not going to be playing this game, so you have a rookie corner. What's this guy's name?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you the same question because I read something about it, but I honestly don't know. He's big and he's physical. I do know that.
I just Googled Saints depth chart.
He's like 6'3" or something, 6'2", so like he has the athletic ability to compete, but like he's a rookie. He's playing Odell, and even if he does do great against Odell, You still have Victor Cruz and Sterling Shepard. Odell only had 4 catches against Dallas, and we still won the game. So we do have a lot to offer on offense, which is nice. The running game was pretty good. I think they're going to feed Rashad Jennings a lot. Jonah's under the impression that Odell might have 1,000 receiving yards in this game.
I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying.
Which would be great, don't get me wrong. But also, the Giants showed that they still cannot cover anyone in the middle of the field against Dallas, as seen by Cole Beasley and Jason Witten. Therefore, Willie Snead will probably have another huge game, or Brandon Cooks, or maybe both. Who really knows? But I do think the Giants are the better football team, and I do think they are good enough this year defensively to not let the Saints score 52, and I think they are still good enough to score 49 offensively. So any way you spin it, I think it's going to be a great game, high scoring, and a lot of fun to watch. So I highly suggest watching it. I will probably have my eyes closed for most of it, but I think the Giants will get the win.
Yeah, I'm also going with the Giants just because, like, I don't like the Giants more than you do. I think I like them similarly to you at this point. Like, at the beginning of the offseason, I was a lot more skeptical of the Giants. I'm kind of come around to, like, yeah, they've got some big players on this team.
And Grant, I actually think the Giants, I was not exactly happy with how they played against the Cowboys. I was happy to get the win because we haven't beaten them in week 1 in, I think, 5 years. But I don't think they played well by any stretch of the imagination. So I think there's still a lot more this team can offer. But a win is a win.
Yeah, I'd like, just add to that, like you said, I don't like the Saints at all. Like, I've said that a bunch of times. Them along with what was the other team we were just talking about?
Jaguars, Raiders.
Well, right. Yeah, I was skeptical of the Jaguars and Raiders, but I just don't think the Saints are very good. I think it's going to be impossible for them to guard all the Giants receivers. So I think the Saints are going to score points, but I expect it to be like a 42-31 type game, you know? Like,
yeah,
it's going to be.
right.
So I'm going to go with the Giants as well.
So the first one we agreed on. So somebody's going to lose a lot of games this week, it sounds like. So next, so we're going to pick the Sunday night game, which is Packers-Vikings, and then we're going to give you our lock and our upset, and then we're
We're not picking the Monday night game this week because
it sucks.
Bears, it's just going to be an absolute abomination.
And somehow Chicago's 0-1.
No one should watch it.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it because I'm addicted to watching football. Like, none of you should watch it.
Like, it's such a good game that the Bears are 0-1 and played pretty poorly against the Texans and are still favored by 3. So you spin that however you'd like it, but the Packers are playing.
Can I just go off for a second?
Oh, of course.
On one thing.
Please.
Everyone in the greater Philadelphia area and, like, tons of other people on Twitter, including President Obama.
Don't even say what I think you're about to say.
I don't think I'm going to. Well, you have to tell me after. But they were all, like, saying, because Obama was giving a speech in Philadelphia today. He said, like, yeah, Joe Biden said you guys got a quarterback. Get on the Wentz wagon or whatever. And, like, Carson Wentz, like, was so good. Like, let's take, like, 14 chill pills here. Because, literally, Carson Wentz played the Browns and looked moderately competent. Like, let's all take a step back. And this doesn't count either, because the Bears secondary is maybe the worst in the league. So, like, let's wait till he plays, like, a real decent team before we decide that Carson Wentz is the new Donovan McNabb, all right?
Also, he had one drive where he went down the field, which was the first drive of the game. I think they went, like, 75 yards, and he threw a touchdown pass. Like, okay, cool. One drive, first drive of your career, great. You score a touchdown, but, like, hello, there's more than just that one drive to the game.
Yeah, I just, like...
He did no more than Dak Prescott did, and he played a much worse defense.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you put Dak Prescott in that game in an Eagles uniform, he would have played exactly as well and probably better.
Yes, I would agree.
Like, you like Carson Wentz a little bit more than I did. Obviously, now that he's on the Eagles, you hate Carson Wentz.
I still think he's a good quarterback. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that the kid can be a good quarterback, but, like, you played the Browns.
he needs some time. He played the Browns. God, we both hate the Eagles.
I hate the Browns now, too.
Yeah, the Browns, yeah.
They're such a joke. It's unreal.
It's too much time talking about them.
Yeah, anyways, Packers-Vikings. Sunday Night Football. We are unveiling a new stadium in Minnesota. First time playing at US Bank Stadium with who at quarterback?
Did they name Bradford the starter officially?
It's fun fact, they actually named the stadium Sam Bradford's Stadium.
Sam Bradford Memorial Stadium for when he gets killed by violent Minnesotans with pitchforks after he destroys their season.
So, no, he has not been named the starter yet. If I had to guess, I wouldn't put money on it, but if I had to guess, he would be the starting quarterback here. Sean Hill did nothing to lose that job. Their offense, like Adrian Peterson, who's on my fantasy team, just pissed me off beyond belief last week. 19 carries for 31 yards against Tennessee, and they were losing the whole game. Their defense scored the only 2 touchdowns of the game. But so offensively, they look terrible. Stephon Diggs looked great. He had like 7 catches for 100 yards or something.
I'm glad I took them out of my playoff spot there.
Yeah.
I mean, I did give it to the Redskins, but still.
Yeah, which didn't look good either. But
no.
So Sean Hill did nothing to lose the job. He threw for 200 yards, didn't throw any interceptions. And Matt Hasselbeck actually was talking on ESPN saying how he thinks Sean Hill is by far and away the better quarterback than Sam Bradford. Sounds like Jonah's echo.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna die on this hill with Sam Bradford. Understand?
I still think Bradford's gonna get the start. I think he's the better quarterback. I think he has more to offer for the team. Granted, he is a bigger boom or bust kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think with the talent they have, they can almost take that risk. Just because their defense is good enough. Like I said, their defense beat Tennessee by themselves. They didn't even need to play offense. But they're not going to beat the Packers. I don't care what anyone says. I know it's a home game. They got all this excitement. I know that they didn't play that well last week, and they're expected to play a lot better, but you're not beating Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, they're bringing Sam Bradford to an Aaron Rodgers fight, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I'm going with the Packers as well, but I think it will be an interesting game to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing them play in that new stadium.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely going to have a lot of momentum from the crowd, so I could definitely see them, I don't know, maybe coming out shooting early and scoring some touchdowns here and there. But I just think I don't know. Well, from what I saw from Aaron Rodgers last week, I don't know if anybody's beating him.
Right, yeah. I mean, they'll lose a few games. They'll be fluky.
You have to.
They always do.
Right.
But I don't see them losing this one.
Right. All right, so let's go with our... Want to do our locks first?
Let's do our lock first.
All
Like
right.
we did that last week.
You got it.
So I'm going with the Panthers as my lock. It's not a very risky pick. They're the biggest favorite of the week. They're playing at home against San Francisco, who didn't look too bad in that Week 1 game, but I'm describing that mostly to just how god-awful the Rams are and less to how good the Niners are. I think they're okay. They're probably a little bit better than we anticipated them as, but it's still Blaine Gabbert in a road game, and I think that's pretty much the safest thing to ever bet against. So I'm going with the Panthers.
Yeah, I actually also have the Panthers. Coming off a loss, you expect them to play a lot better. They're playing much worse of a team, and a team that really doesn't have a lot of offense whatsoever. I know they scored 28 points against the Rams, who are supposed to have a decent defense, but Jonah and I both discussed in the preseason how really they lost everything besides their front four, which is still just as good as it always has been.
Bad.
Aaron Donald got ejected, so none of this counts. Yeah, I got the Panthers too, and I know that's a cop-out. I mean, we both copped out there, but all the rest of the games should be relatively close. New England is another game you could probably pick as a lock against the Dolphins. And a team that I think should be the lock, which is also not in terms of us, but could be an upset, would be the Jaguars over the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3. The Chargers...
Not enough to make that a possible underdog pick, but we both think the Jaguars will win that game. Yeah,
and the Chargers looked good for a quarter and a half against the Chiefs and then blew a 23-point lead, I think it was, 21-point lead, and ended up losing the game. And the Jaguars looked good. So with that being said, we'll get to our upsets. Since we already picked the Bengals-Steelers, I will not pick the Bengals as an upset, even though I think they will win against the Steelers.
What's that line, 3.5?
3.5, yep. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Arizona Cardinals, which comes as a shock to me, probably comes as a shock to you too. I had the Cardinals as the best team in the NFC to start the year. I didn't like anything I saw from their defense. Tyrann Mathieu is still getting readjusted. Granted, he's still going to be awesome, and he's still one of the best safeties in the NFL, no doubt in my mind. But their defense didn't look... I don't know if it definitely didn't look as good as I thought it was going to. It is week 1, but I feel like they lost the tenacity that they had last year. Like, something about it just noticeably looked different to me. And Jameis Winston's coming off a 4-touchdown performance. Pretty solid game against the Falcons where they won by 10, I believe, 31-21. And I think Tampa's pretty good this year. The spread is 7 in Arizona's favor. Honestly, I could see Arizona blowing them out of the water, but for the upset, I'm just going to go with the Bucs.
I can't believe I picked the Falcons to finish ahead of the Bucs in that division. Like, that's probably one of the worst things I ever did. And like, I did that like relatively recently. Like, it's not even like
you did.
Like, I don't know. Like, the Falcons are bad. They have no one on that defense. I don't know. But yeah, we'll skip past that. My upset for this week is going to be the Titans. I don't think that they're a great team, but they looked better than I expected against the Vikings. And they're playing in Detroit. They're, I believe, 6-point underdogs.
Yep.
So that would be a decent sized upset. The Lions looked pretty good beating the Colts last week. I just don't think the Colts are any good. And I think you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I'm not giving the Lions a ton of credit for that. I think I could pretty easily see the Titans pulling this one off, so I'm going to go with them as my upset.
Fun fact, to talk you out of this, even though you already picked it.
Yeah, it's too late now.
Detroit's offensive coordinator, whatever his name, Jim Bob, I can't think of his last name.
Jim Bob Cooter.
There you go. How could I forget that last name?
Yeah.
He, since taking over as offensive coordinator for the Lions, is 7-2. Matt Stafford has thrown 22 touchdowns and 2 picks with a 60% completion percentage over that span. So, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's doing something right. Matt Stafford threw for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Colts. Yes, it was the Colts, but Tennessee doesn't necessarily have that much more defensively than the Colts do. But I could definitely see them losing to Tennessee. I don't really think they're that good. So I don't mind that pick. So those are our picks for this week. Do you want to explain the Bill Simmons thing that we're going to do?
Yeah, so what they do is every week they just take a look at what happened in the league and just decide a team that they can cross off in the playoffs. So, and they do it a little differently than we're going to do it. We're just going to do it a little more systematically. We're just every week, each of us picks a team, picks one team that they are the most certain will not make the playoffs. And once you pick a team, you can't pick them again. And at the end of week 17, if you like, the goal at the end of the year is to not have picked a team that eventually is in the playoffs. So basically, you either win or you lose for the year.
Right, and then if we both have a team that's not in the play, or multiple teams or whatever, we'll do whoever has the least amount of teams incorrect will win or whatever.
Yeah. So this week,
since we missed last week, do you want to do 2 this week, and then we'll just do 1 from here on out?
Yeah. Okay, that works. So this week, I'll do 1, you'll do 1, and then I'll do 1, you'll do 1.
Sure.
So this week, my first team to cross off is the Cleveland Browns. I feel pretty confident about that. They just didn't show me anything other than what I thought about them already. And there's just no way that team makes the playoffs. There's not any good players on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the same team. I was on record earlier saying that I thought they could win 5 or 6 games. Honestly, I don't know if they can win 2 now. RG3 is already out for a month and a half, so who knows what's going to happen with the offense. They don't move the ball around whatsoever. That's the most underutilized I've ever seen in terms of talent. There's nothing to like about the Browns. I'm sorry. Cleveland, your reign stops here. Indians, you might win the World Series, but you got no shot in hell in February with this football team.
Nope. Not a chance. They'll be all right. They'll be happy for another 50 years now that the Cavs won.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so who you got for number 2?
My other cross-off is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. I thought they had like a possible shot before the season started. Obviously, it was just one game against the Niners, but the Niners aren't good, and they looked like the freaking 85 Bears against the Rams. That was like one of the worst performances by a team I've seen in an NFL game that I can remember. In that Rams game, that second Monday night game last week, they lost 28-0. They had absolutely nothing on offense. The Jared Goff pick's already looking bad.
He hasn't even gotten a chance. Will you relax?
Well, they had a quarterback in Case Keenum and an offense that was playing so badly that they were losing 28-0 to San Francisco, and they're still not willing to put Goff in. He's like their third string quarterback right now. Sean Mannion's got him.
Yeah, but it's going to switch this week, so don't worry. Jared Goff is supposed to be the second quarterback this week, and Mannion's supposed to be the third. So Mannion will be the one that's inactive, is what Jeff Fisher said before last week. We'll see. They're not going to make the playoffs. You're 100% right about that.
Jeff Fisher, man.
Yeah. Mediocrity at its finest.
Aren't they?
I think Dallas is in talks to bring him in since he goes 8-8 every year, 7-9. They figured.
Jesus Christ! If Dallas hires Jeff Fisher, I'm literally jumping out.
They figured they could continue the mediocrity of both sides would pair nicely.
Oh God.
So I would also pick the same team, but just to be different, I'm gonna go with San Diego. And the main reason I'm going with San Diego, although they put up a lot of points last year, one, Keenan Allen tore his ACL, which just popped into my head. So good luck with Travis Benjamin as your number one receiver. No offense, Travis Benjamin, you're just not a number one receiver. And another reason is because they're 0-1, and the other three teams in their division are 1-0. And I also expect the Chargers to lose this week and the other three teams to win, which would make them 2 games back, 2 games into the season.
It just puts them in a big hole.
Yeah, it's nothing you can't come back from. You play each of those teams twice a year anyways. Just win all your division games, and you immediately put yourself in the conversation. But that's not going to happen. So I'm going with the Chargers, and that means next week I'll pick the Rams.
All right.
So that'll
just ruin the suspense there.
Well, maybe the Rams will come out and drop 35 on Seattle.
Seattle.
Hey, you never know. You know they beat them every year.
Yeah.
Is this at the Coliseum, by the way, or is it in Seattle?
No, it's at the Coliseum. It's the first game.
Ooh, there's some intrigue there, bud.
There's a little potential there. Well, nobody believes in us potentially.
us against the world.
Like we said earlier, they always beat the Seahawks every single year.
Exactly. So Jonah just gave Seattle the kiss of death there because it's very obvious that St. Louis, that LA is going to win the game.
Right, exactly, because I picked them to not make the playoffs just now. It's a given. It will happen.
So that'll do it this week. Next week will be more of the same. Hopefully something good will happen in college football. Lord only knows. We do have Louisville playing Ohio State, so that should be a good one. I mean, Florida State, sorry. So that should be a good one. Ohio State plays Oklahoma. Alabama plays Ole Miss. There's some good games.
We got Michigan State, Notre Dame. That should be good.
I hate Notre Dame. Nobody cares.
Well, yeah, I'm not a fan of either of those teams as a Michigan fan, but it should be a good game to watch.
Yeah, so there's good football games at least, thank God. We kind of took a week off since there were so many bad ones last week. Jonah's Wolverine won 63-3 or something stupid.
Yeah, I'll wait till they play somebody good to get too cocky, but they do pretty good.
So we'll probably talk a little bit about college football next week and some more NFL. And yeah, it's going to be that way for a little while. It's a good time of year. We'll keep this picking thing up. So I'm 3-3, Jonah's 2-4. We picked 2 differences this week, plus our upsets and locks. So there's a lot of room for movement.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll see you back here next week. Thanks for listening.